Well, there you have it. June 1st is probably one of the best sports days on record. June 1st, 2024, outside of UFC 300. I mean, what a day. You start out with some crazy killers in everything from the French Open all the way to boxing and UFC. So I'll cover some of these things. And we're mainly going to start out with the Champions League because Dortmund and Real Madrid was just absolutely insane. I mean, I can't even believe what happened. But 30 minutes into the game, or you know what? Let me go back. Before I even start with the game, I had Dortmund winning this game if they could start very fast. Adeyemi could run Carvalho down and just tire him out. And as long as they scored a couple goals in the beginning, I was very comfortable with them winning the entire game. However, this is clearly not what happened, man. They had three, four chances. This game should have been 3-0 at halftime, which would have been enough, I think, to give Dortmund the win. But they just could not put the ball in the goal. The ball would hit the goalpost and come right back out. None of it really made sense to me. I just sat there dumbfounded, like, man, what a way to lose this game. But 30 minutes into the game, I figured already that Dortmund was going to lose the game. And it's so sad that I have to say that. However, in the second half, Matzin started showing a little bit of fatigue. I don't know why the coach never picked up on that. That was very interesting to see. And I'll show some video on this so you guys can see it as well. You know, in the 71st minute, I believe it was, when Adeyemi was taken out for Reus, I thought that was the biggest mistake that Dortmund could have made. And it's no coincidence that 2 minutes later, Carvalho scores. Carvalho got a break the second Adeyemi was out of the game. Carvalho was getting tired throughout that entire time. If something was wrong with Adeyemi, maybe they were in the right to actually pull him out. But if nothing was wrong with him, that decision to bring Reus in and take Adeyemi out never made any sense. Matzin, once again, was tired on that left wing back position, and he gave up two important goals. The first one to Carvalho and the second one over to Vinicius Jr. It was really sad to see it, man. But at the same time, this is part of the game, man. These guys are pros for a reason. Real Madrid is not as good as they are by accident. They seem to have an infinite budget at the same time, but I'm proud of them. Congrats to Real Madrid. I know the fans are definitely excited about what happened and everything the way that it happened. So I'm very happy with the results that we got. Dortmund, I hope they get another chance at this sometime because they had a really great team and I thought that they could have done it. But you cannot give up that many chances over to Real Madrid and expect to beat them. It's far too hard to do that after a while, man. You gotta take advantage of what you have in the meantime. All right. So that covers the Champions League finals. Now, the next thing we got to talk about is definitely UFC 302. This was a great fight card, but mainly I do want to kind of focus on Dustin Poirier and Hassan Makhachev. There's just a couple things going on in here that I'm really still trying to figure out on my own. For me, from when the fight started, just looking at Dustin Poirier's face, something just seemed off. Now, I don't know if he was hyper focused or if there was something going on with him that no one knew about, but for some reason, when he was getting punched in the first round, he would not take his head off the center line. Matter of fact, he wouldn't take his head off the center line the entire fight. And I understand Hassan was not throwing haymakers or anything like that, but Dustin was taking those shots and, seeming okay because they were not really power shots being thrown at him. So why was he not taking his head off the center line? Maybe taking his head off the center line would distract him from the bigger picture to get taken down. So he was taking damage in situations just for no reason, but maybe that was part of the game plan. So I'm not sure. He would have to speak on that. And the entire fight, is it just me or is his shorts just bothering him? He keeps playing around with his shorts, and every time he goes to touch those shorts, Makhachev would come in for the attack, and he didn't wait. He's like, oh, his hands are down, touching the shorts, I'm going in. And Islam was doing a good job, shockingly standing up with Dustin, even though he did not threaten him with the damage or the power. But at the same time, Dustin just seemed off. Even in the stand up, he seemed like he just couldn't get himself going, you know? And it could have been due to the threat of the takedowns. Islam Makhachev is one of the best wrestlers in all of UFC, period. Probably the best right now with Habib being out. He's probably one of the best, if not the best. Okay. Um, but sometimes just watching Dustin, there was just something off, man. I don't know what it is. I really can't put my finger on it, but it just seemed like he couldn't get going. He wasn't as fluid with his hands as Dustin normally is. He wasn't as free as doing anything. And like I said, it could have been the threat of the takedown. But Islam's corner, after what I would say the third round, they're yelling at him, take this fight to the ground, because that's where he really had a chance. In the beginning, I would say Islam won the first round and the third round, but round two and round four, I definitely gave to Poirier. And if I'm being 100% honest with myself, if Islam did not get that Darce choke, I think Poirier might have been the champ. That fight was that close. And Islam was losing round five until he got the Darce choke. So I think it was just too close for comfort, and I know his corner noticed that. They did not want to let him risk losing his belt or anything like that. I'm glad he got the win. He's the champ for a reason. He's dangerous everywhere, man. Islam is just that good. Um, and I know there's all this talk about Islam wanting to move up to 170. That's such a weird proposition. At welterweight right now, the champion is Leon Edwards. Can he beat Leon? I think only if he takes him down and wrestles. I think that's the only way he can beat Leon. However, I don't think that's the problem with Islam Makhachev moving up to 170 and taking the belt. Him and Kamaru Usman have the same manager, Ali Abdelaziz. So what happens? Let's just say if Islam wins the 170 title, then does that force Kamaru to permanently move up to middleweight? But then Izzy becomes the problem. Or does that mean that Kamaru would stay at 170 but then have to fight Islam to get his belt back? And that would be a crazy fight, guys. Like, think about it. The wrestling pedigree between the two, Sambo versus the wrestling of Kamaru. The stand-up game I would give to Kamaru, and then I think the wrestling is what would separate the two. That is an interesting fight, but being that they're both under Ali Abdelaziz, I don't know if they would be willing to fight each other. Out of respect, they might avoid each other. And we already know that Izzy and Kamaru has said they will not fight even at middleweight. But Kamaru has entertained the idea if they decide to throw down enough money. But I don't think that will happen. Let me just say, I hope it doesn't happen. I don't want those guys to really fight. But can Kamaru move up to 205 in that situation then? But then what happens at 205 if he puts on too much weight on his body and the knees can become a problem. There's a lot of factors that kind of go into this. This is not as straightforward as a lot of people think. So Islam Makhachev going up to 170, fighting for the title there, it could bring up a lot of problems in the UFC. But I'm actually intrigued and a little interested to see what will happen. So we'll have to keep in touch with that one and get back on that. Right now, we are going to roll over to boxing. Okay. I didn't even know there was a boxing event going on. Between tennis, soccer, MMA, I had no idea that Riyadh season had boxing fights going on. But evidently Wilder was fighting Zhang last night. I had no idea, and I'm hoping a lot more people knew about this than I did. But obviously boxing fans were probably watching. Wilder actually threw some good shots at Zhang. But, man, you're giving up 68 pounds at the heavyweight inside the heavyweight division. 68 pounds is a lot, man. I don't care who you are, especially if you're boxing someone who is a consistent fighter. He's out there doing his thing, and he's a very dangerous heavyweight fighter. Zhang can fight, or Zhang can box, okay? And he's really good at it, and he got a chin too. So right now, you know what? Before I go back to the fight, I just want to say something. Thank you to Saudi Arabia for starting to fix the boxing problem. I think there's a really big boxing problem that a lot of people are really ignoring. And Saudi Arabia is almost buying boxing at this point. But at the same time, they're fixing it. They're putting on the fights that we know everyone actually needs to see. We have too many people in the same divisions in boxing who are undefeated because they avoid those big fights. I honestly think if all the big fighters actually fought each other in their divisions, you would only need one champion. You don't need four champions. That's one thing. You would just unify the belts, number one. And number two, if any, you would just have one undefeated guy. And that's a big if. You know, if you're fighting all the best people, chances are you're probably not going to remain undefeated. Which, you know, there's only one Floyd Mayweather. He's not the only ever undefeated boxer. I get it, but he was a special situation. Although I do have to say, he picked his fights when it was right for him, also. So Saudi Arabia is fixing this problem, and I would like to see Tank go to Saudi Arabia and actually fight. And you know, without any of these hydration clause or anything like that, I think that's all BS. Can you make the weight that was agreed upon on the contract? If you can, fight the next day. There's no limit on hydration or anything like that. That doesn't matter. That's part of the sport. We know it's almost sanctioned cheating. We understand it. We get it. I'm more of an MMA guy, so we understand it. You know, you can weigh 185 one day just to weigh in, and you're 225 at fight time. We get it. We know what's going on. It's not a secret. But to block how much someone can rehydrate, it limits their performance far too much, and it takes away their power, and then they can't take hits either. So we just have to accept how the human body works. But Saudi Arabia is really fixing this problem. And one of the fights that they put together, of course, was Wilder and Zhang. And Wilder gets TKO'd. You know, Wilder gets TKO'd. Does this end his career? I really hope not. I really hope we get to see him again. I hope he takes time though to, you know, recover, to heal up. You know, after that third fight with Tyson Fury, listen, things change. Okay. After you've been knocked out, your brain starts working differently and it's easier for you to get knocked out over and over again. And he didn't get knocked out cold. It was TKO'd, but you know, once it happens one time, everything changes. You know, it doesn't matter if you're an MMA guy or a boxing guy, whatever it is, everything changes after that point. You know, but Saudi Arabia is now fixing the problem, and there are a couple fights that I would love to see. One is Terrence Crawford and Canelo. I think I want to see that fight at like 164 or 168. I don't know if Canelo can cut down to 164, but if it needs to be at 168, Bud can make 168. It's cool, and I know he can fight and he'll be comfortable. He probably walks around 168, 170, so he doesn't even have to cut weight for the fight. He can just be himself. I think that would be amazing. I think we definitely got to see Anthony Joshua also fight Alexander Usyk. Um, a guy that I don't know if we will ever see fight again is Francis Ngannou. I don't really want to see him fight in boxing. I want to see him in MMA, but Francis has been through a lot, you know, after losing his son and everything, and also what happened in the last fight with Anthony Joshua. He said himself just couldn't get going. It just wasn't his day, and that's, you know, the guy's going through a lot. I totally understand it, but I hope we do get to see him again. So there's definitely a lot of good fights, and Tank needs to take a fight, man. I would love to see Tank and Ryan Garcia rematch. Let's say like 143 or maybe 147. No rehydration clause. You're fighting Ryan Garcia at his 100%, and I don't think Tank will take that fight. I just don't think he will. But I do want to see Tank and Shakur Stevenson once again. Saudi Arabia, let's make this happen. You guys can do it, and I believe you can. Um, there's a lot of good fights that are out there, man. Another thing that I will touch on before we go, guys, is this Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia nonsense. Whew, guys, this is. Look, Devin Haney just has to accept that he lost this fight, okay? Ryan Garcia won fair and square. He even got his ashwagandha tested, and it had contaminants of ostarine. And plus, the ostarine that was in his system, that was found in his system, was a billionth of a gram. A billionth of a gram is not doing anything for anybody. Okay? That's not going to do anything. We watched a fight. Haney, you got beat. It's okay. Just accept it and move on. This is kind of what I was talking about earlier when I said I think each division of boxing should just have one champ. And if there's anyone that's undefeated, it's not more than one person in the division. Everybody fights everybody. You're not dodging anyone. You're gonna take the hard fights. You're not taking the easy fights just to have a better record or make more money, this, that, and the third. I get the business of boxing is very different, but that all needs to change. And I'm so glad that we have a different route for things to start changing now. So I can't wait to see maybe a rematch between Haney and Ryan Garcia, but I want to see it at like 143 or 147 because Ryan Garcia I don't think can make 140, just like he said. Even he claimed when he fought Tank, he cut so much weight that he almost died. That's why he couldn't take shots. He had no power or anything. And I don't want to see that, man. I want to see these guys at 100% ready to perform and do their thing. That's what I want to see. And I think the boxing fans deserve that. MMA fans, we get that all the time. We're kind of spoiled by that. Dana White, does his thing, man. He keeps it going. So thank you to that guy. Thank you to the UFC for putting up great shows every time. Like Dana White said, he sells holy shit moments. He's absolutely right. And he's the best at it. And I think boxing needs to kind of follow into that footstep where Saudi Arabia came in and is taking over that. So I'm just glad that we're seeing it, man. And I want to see the best fight the best. No one dodges anyone for years on end and then fight them when someone gets too old or when they're out of their prime or anything like that. It's just time to change the game. And like I said, if you end up undefeated, kudos to you, man. Great job. But don't be undefeated and you only fought one or two people your entire career that actually matter. You know, we actually want to see the big fights in there also. So thank you guys for listening, man. We'll definitely be back for more. Peace out, y'all.